Well, welcome this evening. Being a Kentucky colonel, I want to wish all the other colonels out there a happy Derby. My horse won. Ed? And I even had to put the roses on the horse. So it was a fun day for me. I miss going to the Derby a lot. I'm envious of the people that are there. I miss the camaraderie of the Colonel organization, and I know everybody had a great time. So with that said, I'd like to open the show. Welcome to Saturday, May 1st meetup. Phil, if you could start the slides for me, please. Phil gave me some great ideas about how to do this show, and we're going to try to do them again tonight. I hope you enjoy it more. I hope it's a better show for you and doesn't take as much time. If you're new to the show, I hope that you'll register at our website, newtracksmodeling.com. I hope that you will send the links that you get to our shows to your friends. If you register on our website, you'll receive a login link for the Zoom portion of our show prior to the show every time we have one. And if you could pass that information on to your friends, then more people would come and we'd have even more participation by modelers in our show. And I would really appreciate it if you could do that for me. The reason I'm saying that is I had a modeler say that he had friends that would like to see him on the show, but when they went to register at our website, they couldn't get a login link immediately, so they couldn't find out how to get on the Zoom portion of our show. Well, it doesn't happen immediately. If you go to our website and you log in or you register, you'll get an email from the website. You confirm your email and confirm your registration. And then for the next show, you start getting the emails. And that's why I'm asking you, as members who have already registered and are getting the emails, if you could pass them on to your friends, or people that you think might really be interested. I'll leave it up to your judgment. The only reason that we stopped posting the information so that everybody could see it was because we were hacked a couple of times. And we're trying to make the show as safe for everybody and as pleasant as we can. But we do hope that you'll help us in communicating how to log into the show to people that you think might benefit from it. The Build Along projects. You have the information. If you've been on the show a lot, you know pretty much when all of the people are going to be doing things. I have one date that I need to fill, and that is to start on August the 14th and run for however long you think it's going to take you to build a model with whatever manufacturer and whatever modeler you want to choose. So if you could contact me at my email, I would appreciate it. It's the only date right now I have left to fill this year, basically. So I'm really interested in trying to fill this last one. You asked for me to continue these in the summertime, and we've got a great one that starts the summertime with Rick and Maureen Hunter. And Rick is here tonight and would like to say a few words about his build along that starts on May the 22nd. And everybody that builds along with Rick and Maureen are going to be able to show their build and participate in a My Build for that on July the 24th. So Rick, I'll ask you to comment on the build along that you're going to start with the 22nd of May.
There, I hit the mute button.
Okay.
There, I think I'm okay.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. We are getting in about 10 or 12 registrations now, and we have a lot that are sitting on the fence. All I can say to the ones that are sitting on the fence, better register quick. because we have to ship the kits and the weathering mix out to you. And we're putting a date on May the 8th of all the registrations have to be into us, okay? We have actually a bunch of local guys right here in around my city that are going to be participating too. So that's kind of neat. I wanted to show you exactly what we're doing. We're doing our King Post Truss Bridge. And this is actually the N scale version of it. Now, we've had a lot of comments about this type of design, that this is for roads or highways. Yeah, they can be, but this particular design with this size of lumber on it is actually a railroad bridge. And back in the early or mid 1800s, 1/3 of the bridges in North America were a king post or a queen post. So they were always used all over. I can show you where they are right now. But what we're offering is the kit to build in whatever scale you want, N, H, O, S, or O, and those narrow gauges, okay? Because the same kit can build it in standard gauge or in narrow gauge. So we're also offering 2 bottles of our weathering mix. Usually you want a highlight color and a base color. We're suggesting a base color of a light gray or a light brown or something like that. And then the second color, the highlight color, we're saying to use creosote black, because everything on trains is oily, greasy, grimy, crappy stuff. So our black, we call it creosote black, is just great for doing that. So that's what we're offering. And in the package is shipping to anywhere you want. So, we're really looking forward to it. We've done a lot of these over the years, but in person. And this is going to be the first time we've done it virtually. And this is getting wound up for it. This is great. Okay, Jim.
Hey, Rick, I can't thank you and Maureen enough. I really do appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. And I'll tell you this. I know the tool that Al Collins makes, that Ultimation. You're going to be using that in your build. And I know that Al is doing the best he can. I know the cost of shipping and everything is awfully high from Canada to the US. But I'm going to talk to Al and see if I can't convince him to maybe give us some kind of a discount for the people that are building along, that maybe need to use his equipment if they order by a certain date. And Al, if you're out there listening, I hope that you'll consider doing that kind of a discount, the same as you did for the Great American Train Show that I promoted for you.
Actually, Jim, that was the world's greatest hobby.
Okay, that's the one it was. Whatever it was, it just was up. I don't keep track that well. Anyway, whatever.
You know what the biggest problem with this? The biggest problem with that show was that I had to speak for 6 hours straight.
And see, I'm not asking you to do that. I'm asking 30 minutes a shot and take your time and enjoy it.
This is good. I wanted to add one more thing I forgot to add is all the participants in this, okay, when we get near the end, we're going to have a draw, and we're offering a $50 gift certificate for any of our products.
How about that, guys? Can't beat that. I'm telling you.
So you almost get your money back.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I want you to make sure you mention that the whole time, because I think it's important not for people just to build along. I think it's important that they come and they show us the models. I'd really like to see what people are doing with it. And if they've got them installed on their layout, I'd love to see how they utilize the bridge on their layout. If they don't, I'd love to see the finished product and have them talk about it a little bit.
Sure.
To me, that's all part and parcel of the build along. And the more people we can get to participate, I think the better. So that's great. Anyway, talk to Al. We need that discount. All right.
Thanks, guys. I have to go. I got company here.
Thank you so much, Rick.
All right. Thanks.
Bill Davis is going to also do a LaBelle open platform baggage car. And he's starting, I think it is June the 2nd. He's going to be starting his bill. So what I've gotten LaBelle to agree to is a 25% discount on the kit. You won't get a better discount anywhere from LaBelle than that. And he was really, really helpful and wanted to participate. I'll tell you this, in order to get the discount, you must mention New Tracks when you order from him. If you order from him and you do not mention New Tracks, you do not get the discount. And calling him up later and say, oh, geez, I forgot, forget it. If it's not in the order, it's not available to you. It's 25% off of this kit at LaBelle. We've also got one started with Dave Rarick on July the 17th with, it's going to be a card model that Paul Egret designed. Now, I had posted on I think it's 15 to 20 different websites. And Ed, if you could just spot, thank you, Ed. On 15 or 20 websites, 2 sample card models that Paul had designed. And I've gotten over 200 people saying they like that post that I made. And I know people are downloading. So that's very encouraging to me that there's that kind of an interest in card modeling out there, because I really do think that it could be a major part of our hobby moving forward because of how cheap it is to actually get involved in it. You don't need that many tools, and how cheap it is to get the download. It's the cost of printing the pieces of paper. And if you make a mistake, you simply re-download one of the pieces of paper and keep going. Now, I had Dave of Cleaver Models. Somebody had responded to the post that I made on my Facebook page and say, Jim, you're aware that Dave used some of my designs from Cleaver Models. And I said, no, I'm really not aware of that. And I wasn't. I know that Dave considers his designs, Paul considers his designs as kit bashing. So he uses bits and pieces from wherever he can find information on the internet. And if some of that happened to come from Cleaver, then that's what he would include. So I sent Dave at Cleaver a message and said, I don't want any problem here. If you want to have Cleaver Models come on my show and provide the models and so forth, that's fine with me. We'll do it that way. However you want to do it is fine with me. If you want to come on the show and do a separate build along, great, love to have you. I said, but other than that, is there a problem with Paul doing the kind of designs that he does and us continuing? It's my understanding that Dave has no problem whatsoever with us doing what Paul is doing. All Dave wanted to do is to make sure that I knew what Paul was really doing with his designs and that some of it was kit bashing. Well, he got through to me. I responded to him. I responded to Paul and told him about the issue and that I wasn't interested unless we could get everybody happy and on the same page. As far as I know tonight, everybody is happy and we're moving forward. So the post will be up around the end of July. The end of June, so that you'll have plenty of time to download the engine house, which is what Dave Rarick will be building in card on the show starting on July 17th. Okay, the rest of it, I think we pretty well covered, Phil. So if we could go to the card that says next segment. We're starting a new segment, and we have one of them done tonight. which is Watch Me Build. And John Frankfurter is the person that stepped forward and is doing the building of a S-scale bridge for us tonight. It's a scratch build model that he's made. Nick Santos is going to do one with an AccuScale kit, but I need more modelers that want to do this particular kind of segment. Watch me build. It can be scratch built, it can be kit bash, I don't care what it is. It can be plastic, it can be card, I don't care what it is. We'd like to see what you're building. We'd like to see the techniques that you're utilizing. If you'd like to be a part of this segment of our show, please let me know, because I need more people to want to do this. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that nobody wants to do it and I'll drop the segment. But I hope we don't have to, because I think it would be interesting. And it would demonstrate techniques that modelers are using to actually build models. And that's what it's all about. Another new segment that we're going to be starting is going to be going to the hobby shop. I mentioned this briefly last time. I have talked to Anita again at Capital Coast Trains in California, and she's never done Zoom before. And she's concerned about that. So I have a separate Zoom meeting with her set up for tomorrow. And we're going to try it out and see how she and I can get along on Zoom, and see if we can even connect on Zoom. But I believe that she's going to do it, and I think that'll be the first one. Charlie Roust also got me in touch with a hobby shop that he recommended that I include, called Nick's Train. And I've called them today, but they were not available, and I left a message for them to call me back. There's another one now that I have tonight that was recommended, Hiawatha Hobbies in right outside of Milwaukee. And once I get information on them, I will call them. What this is about is trying to bring back the memories that most of us have about being able to go to our local hobby shop that had model railroad stuff and enjoy ourselves. And that's what I'm trying to do in this segment of the show. If you have a local hobby shop that you really recommend, and I'm not talking about a hobby shop that has one Athearn HO model and the rest of it is model airplanes and model trucks. I'm talking about a model hobby shop that handles model railroad equipment. If you have one, if you think that they would be interesting, if you'd recommend that I talk to them, please let me know. Again, you have my email. Ed, if you could post my email somehow, please send me an email and I'll contact them and we'll go from there. I have one other question one other subject here. Our next My Build is May the 29th. And Chris Coase is handling that. If you want to participate in that, please contact Chris. Chris, do you want to talk about that a few minutes, or?
Sure, I could do that. The My Build that we have coming up, if I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's also a to capture for the Blair Line build along. Is that correct?
Yep, and the bar mills.
And the bar mills. Okay, we'll do that. I think what we're going to do is we'll do both of those first, and then at the end of those, then we'll open up to everything else. I'm going to throw my email in the chat, or you can drop me just a quick line in the chat, and I will get you hooked up to save yourself a spot on the upcoming My Build. So I think I've got my.
Keep in mind the bar mills one has a raffle going, $25 credit on the next kit to the person that's drawn in the raffle, but you've got to show your model on this My Build.
Yep, and my email is up in the chat, or you can just drop me a message in the chat. Either way, I'll save you a spot on the show.
Now, Ed had put up my email a little bit ago. I'm looking for brass pieces here, and I haven't been able to find them anywhere. I'm looking for 1/32 angles. I'm looking for 1/32 bar stock. That's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. Very small brass, 12 inches, 36 inches, doesn't make any difference to me. Quantity, that really doesn't bother me either. I'm trying to find a source and I haven't been able to find one. If you know of a source that has that kind of brass, please let me know. K&S used to, they stopped 18 months ago producing it. And most of the stores that I used to get it from are out totally. They don't have any more. All right, with that said, I'd like to start the program with quick tips with Paul Thompson.
Okay, here we go. Sorry, I was asleep at the switch and looking at your other stuff. So just let me get my view set up here. And we'll get into the quick tips. There we go. Now, where is share screen? Okay. Nothing has happened. There we go. Is everybody seeing that now?
Yep.
Yes, we are.
Good. Okay.
Yes.
Basically, my tip for the evening is concerning the small micro drill bits that we all have, the numbered bits, usually down to number 80. And in a lot of cases, these scare a lot of people that are starting in the hobby because they're very easy to break. And generally speaking, most of us start off with a pin vise of some sort. And I've got 2 of them here. I've got 2 or 3 more. I just picked ones to kind of show what we do. This is what most people will end up with, a bit of a pin vise with a swivel top and etc. But even so, these things are a little daunting because they're so small. So what I'm saying here, and I took a bigger one to sort of illustrate, if you're going into plastic, and that's usually what some of the people end up doing first, the drill tends to stick a little and they're very easy to break if you get any pressure going the wrong way. So what I'm saying, to lube the drill bit up a little bit, use a bit of soap and basically just take a bite of the soap on the drill bit and then into your plastic. This is obviously an illustration, just I'm not actually drilling a hole in this truck, but some plastics grab more than others, and this is one way to relieve that tension. And basically, that's my tip for the night, guys, other than the fact that this also gives you a nice little use of some of these packaged soaps you get when you're staying in the Holiday Inn and that kind of thing. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Paul, I certainly appreciate it. I look forward to these every time. When you started these, I didn't know where it was going to hit, but it seems to be very popular, and I think it's going great. Also, we're developing for our website now the capability of having all of Paul's quick tips in one place. And we're going to have different categories in our website where you'll be able to get all of the quick tips and all of this and all of that and so forth and so on in different areas, so that we can reduce the amount of time. If you're looking for a specific person that presented, we'll have everything that person has done on the show. If you're looking for a topic, we'll have everything that anybody has done on that topic. So we're hoping that by doing that on our website, these segments that we're producing and that are recorded and we're breaking out and posting on YouTube will be easier for you to deal with. So now, Bob Farquhar, build along of a Blair Line kit. Bob, thank you so very much for doing this. I really thank you, because if you weren't spending the time and effort to do it, we'd never get it done.
Hey, now last week and the week before I was talking about alcohol and into ink messes in a little cup. I didn't do any relationship of the size of the cup. There's a cup. In case that's what the length there definitely want for your alcohol. So now for the share screen. Okay. And so this is going to be doing the signs, windows, and doors in this session, mostly because it's a lot easier to do all these things on the flat when the walls are flat on their workbench, rather than doing these signs and windows and so on when the building's assembled. So now Clark Gooning did a really nice session on signs and that before. So I'm just going to review some things. This is the sign that comes with the kit. And the first thing to do is photocopy these signs. This fairly thick paper. And so that means you can use it as a tin sign or a sign on wood type of thing. The wet decal is extremely thin. I'll be talking about that shortly. Now these, I'm in Canada, so a lot of these, this particular Moxie and this type of sign, we don't have them in Canada. This stuff here, we don't. NMN filters don't have them either. So I may have to get some signs from elsewhere. I got some from the yellow pages of the phone book, for an example, and some other kits that were I had too. So you can cut these out. This, for example, this one here, the idea is any of these, you cut them out and glue them back to back. So you can hang them from the posts for the porch, if you like. So now we're cutting out the signs. These two here have a little yellow or white edging on them, and then of course a little bit more of the sign coming on the other side. So cut them. You make sure they cut nice and clean. And so there's an example of this, using as an example here. When you do cut the sign out, the white be left on the edge here. And as Clark mentioned before, you want to darken that edge. You could use a marker like this, a felt tip marker, to blacken this section, like all the way along. There's an example of doing it from the back, because if you do it from the front, if you slip like this, I did that as an example, or you do heavy on one side, it ruins the sign. Now, this is a collection of my wife's felt pins. She likes them. This is a quarter of what she has. The idea is you got different colors of different signs. For example, if you want to do this type of sign here, you want to maybe use a blue one to mark the edges, darken up the edges. This one here for the general store, you can do this on black, or you can do this on brown for making it look like it's wood on the edge. It's surprisingly noticeable in the photograph. You could see these type of things. Here's another idea. If you want to age the edge of a sign, we get these little sponges from the dollar store. You get all kinds of them. They're good for doing pen pastels, chalks, and things like that. And but you do the stress ink. You get these from Michael's. You get all kinds of different inks. Like there's a chestnut type, and this is an example. If you just dump it into this ink, and then you push it on the middle across here, and then you get the coloring on both sides. You get on the front side and the back side, and that's the effect you would get if you want to do that, an age effect. Now for the wet decals, maybe you guys already done them. There's a backing on these things. There's what the backing looks like when it comes off, and this is going on this type of wall pieces in this store. And the rib seam roofing, or sorry, the ribs on here will really show up not nicely. It'll show up if you do it just on the decal straight on there. So I got a thin piece of wood here, and very, very thin. And I dunk it in the water for about 1 to 2 minutes, and then you can just peel it off on there. You dab it with a tissue or a paper towel lightly, and when it's dry, then you can cut the board out. The reason why I did it that way was 2 reasons. One of them is that makes the sign sit properly on the wall, on this type of ribbed wall. And not only that now becomes a brace. You don't have to do an internal brace on that wall either. So that's a double effect. So these are the signs that I picked here. This is one from the United States Post Office. I cut the United States part of it off because we won't have that in Canada. But and there's the signs from the that one looks like a porcelain sign because the sun is shining here, and also a shadow down in through here. And I got some other ones from other kits, and some of these are from the yellow pages and stuff. And there's some dry transfers in here as well. Now, the signs are never pristine all the time. They generally get some weathering on there. So I just did a bit of white chalk and just drop them up a little bit just to get that faded bit. So for the windows and doors, oh yeah, for the windows and doors. So this is the template comes with the instructions. For an example, D5, D6, and D7 is for the shed door. And this is the back of the door. This is the front of the door, and you peel and stick. You peel off this backing on there and stick it on here. Now, never had a problem with them coming off. They always sit together well. Those ones here. But I've never trusted the peel and stick with the frame, the door frame or the window frames. So what I do is I want to put the back off, and then I'll put some glue on there as well, just to be on the safe side. Now, this is an example. This looks really rough along this edge. That's the backing that, and also I didn't have a brand new X-Acto knife, so it came out a little bit here. You can see it's kind of rough, but that's the backing paper that's doing that. And you've got the glass that comes with the kit. This is where the shed door goes through here, and there's the shed window, and then pull jaw for shades. And the front windows on either side of them, you can do mix and match them, whatever you like. The pieces that are missing in here, or the gaps in here, are for the window mullions coming through there. And there's for the two front doors. Now, excuse this sign here is not crooked as you look in there, and these things are either. Turns out I got a smudge on my lens. I didn't notice it, and it looks it's wee wah. But anyway, these are not glued in place. It's sitting on there first, the windows and the doors, and make sure it's going to sit okay. This one is almost at the bottom, not quite, and this one here is a big for the bottom. So you have to make sure that comes right down. And when I went to put it together, I noticed that the door itself was down too far, and I had to take a little bit of the bottom off the bottom here. And then when I put this window frame in, you do that one first, and then you can put the rest of the window in there. And I had mine open up a bit. So now I didn't use the plastic that came with the kit. I didn't want the shade looking with a pull down on the shades on the door or there. So I just used some glass in there. Now, and sorry, that lamp I added, that's just a pin from a shirt pin. When you buy a new shirt, you get the pins on there. And some of them are silver color, and I just bend that around and then paint it. That becomes the shade. And now it's been on your property in the center, just sitting there for the time being. And here, this comes with a kit. These grayish panels in here for the front doors. I didn't like that. I wanted to do some real screen, so I use a screen from David's Tea. And this sitting in here right now, so it's not sitting there properly, but I just did it as a test, and then I finally put it together over here. And there's what the front of it is looking like now. When there is the offset on the tabs for going into the concrete base, or the simulated concrete base, and these are the slots here for the roof. Sorry, the porch roof. And I want to talk about that for just a minute here for future. There's two ways of doing this. This is the support piece for the roof. There are four of them. This goes into the wall of the building, and this is for this piece here. This is the slots for the roof go into this tab in here. Now, I'm going to go back to the other picture. When time comes, you're going to have the posts. They're going to be 4 posts out here in front of the building, and you're going to put these pieces in here, as well as you're trying to put them into these slots as well. So there's 2 suggestions you can do here. You can put them onto the piece of the porch roof backing there, and actually then put it in to these slots in here. The only problem is you don't know at this point how high those posts are. So, and I'm going to be talking about that next week in the assembly. There's 2 different ways of doing it, but that's one way of doing it. The other way is put these in individually, and then try and attach that to it next week. So that's it for today. Any questions? Good.
You're doing a great job. You're covering so much, people don't have questions for you. But I appreciate it. I can't thank you enough for doing this,
Certainly.
Bob.
Certainly.
And the feedback that I'm getting, I'm not getting questions. I'm just getting favorable comments about it. So I think whatever you're doing is working. So keep it up.
Perfect.
So now, Medina Spirit won the Kentucky Derby. Bob Baffert now has the record number of Kentucky wins as a trainer in the history of the Derby. Medina Spirit. Yeah, big deal. Okay. Next, we've got Gaylord Gill and Randy Bosner doing their build along with the Bar Mills 1 kit. Gaylord, Randy, thank you so much for doing this, and I'll turn it over to you guys.
All right, Jim, thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's always hard to tell if there are new people joining for the first time tonight, but we are co-facilitating, Randy and I. I'm going to be speaking tonight, but we both have been working on this project together, and we are a good ways through our project plan. We've done intros and 2 prior build sessions. If you ever want to, if you are new to this and want to go back and check those out, it's all on YouTube. It's nicely organized now. You can find those and watch them if you haven't seen them before. So a week ago, when we wrapped up, Randy asked us to work on the interior bracing of our models and paint in the sub-assemblies to glue the walls together. So you're finally starting to get a structure that looks like what your plan was, and to create a foundation. If you have any questions or issues, I'd ask you to hold them to the end here. We're going to see if we have enough time to get to them. We ran over last time. We're going to try to do better this time. So the topics for tonight, we are, just like Bob shared with us, we're going to build some door assemblies, some window assemblies as they come with the kit. And we're going to talk a little bit about detailing these. And I'll once again say the order that we're presenting these in is not necessarily the way you have to do it. In point in fact, Bob just shared the idea of doing signage before you would put your walls together. That sometimes is an excellent way to do it. So the doors are quite straightforward on this kit. We have some personnel doors, 5-panel doors, and a 4-light door. And the main thing in this one is that if you are doing contrasting colors on your doors, remember to do your painting before you assemble. So in the center, you see what's going to be a blue door with the white panels and white trim. You want to get that done before you put those together. Freight doors are also fairly basic. These are hinged doors that come in pairs, 2 different types. One idea on these is, even though this door on the right comes as a complete pair, all one piece, you could choose to cut that apart and maybe show one door ajar as a little variation. The windows. You recall that our kit provides 10 light windows. That may not be what your plan calls for, so you're going to want to first trim off the unneeded panes from your sash assembly. Your plan might call for removing muntins to take what was 4 panes and make a single large pane. A good technique for doing the cutting out of the muntins is to use a chisel blade if you have one, but a number 11 X-Acto works fine too. I would brace a straight edge against this. We didn't show it because it would have kind of covered up part of the photo, but lay a straight edge against this so that you can pull the blade to you against the straight edge and get that nice and tight. It's a good technique to dig an edge in to the side and then rock it, in this case, left to right, rock that forward against the interior edge of the sash and it'll trim up nice. Since these are laser cut parts, there is a little bit of a debris from the laser burning process and it's a good idea to scrape that off with either a blade or a small file. It's just makes a nice clean edge that way. And then you're going to glue your frame or trim pieces to fit. This kit is a little different. I noticed it in Bob's when he shared his window assemblies. On this kit, if you use the trim pieces as they come, the inner edge of the trim lines up pretty much flush with the inner edge of the sash. In other words, it covers that whole edge of the sash. A prototype window would have more of a reveal there. And actually that's what Randy did when he cut his apart. He used a little piece from one trim piece. They come in a U-shaped piece, and a corresponding piece from another side so that he could spread those out just a little bit. But however you do it, whether you do it as the kit provides or spread out a little bit, you want everything to overlap equally. Here's just an option for combining sashes to create a larger window. For double hung windows, you'd want to make up a complete sash and frame assembly first, and then use a piece of sash from another part of the kit materials, and that creates the movable lower sash. So if you paint each of these separately and glaze them, you can then glue that lower sash behind the first assembly. Allows you to do it as a partially opened window, which is a neat effect. Here's some recommendations for gluing the window glazing on. Here's Micromark's liquid PSA. This has nothing to do with your annual physical. In this case, PSA stands for pressure sensitive adhesive. I have not used this, but Randy says it's really neat stuff. Just be aware that it tacks up pretty quickly, and once you stick it on, it's pretty well stuck. So we'll show you how to do that in a minute. Here's Canopy glue. That's been around a long time. Aleene's has also been around a long time, but this is also a relatively new product of theirs called Turbo Tacky Glue. But you know, the regular old Elmer's white glue works fine too. Just be sure you allow enough time for it to set up. So here's a good technique. If you take your painted sash and apply your glue to the back side of it and just press it on a field of the glazing material. Some people like to cut their glazing to size first, but this is a little faster way and just as precise, actually more precise. So glue that on, and once that's set up, then you can use scissors. If you'll note, the rear side of the scissors is bracing now against the back of the sash. And as you cut, you can slice off the excess glazing, and it comes out trimmed right to the sash. I mentioned up here that another alternative to the window glazing that comes in this kit is clear styrene. I like that. In a 10,000th thickness, it is a little bit stiffer product. If you have that, that's a good glazing. We're going to give you two approaches to installing your windows. One is to build up from the rear of the wall. So here's the wall of our structure lying down, face down, and we're dropping in our window assembly with the glazing. The window sash is painted, the glazing is attached. We're dropping that in, and we can touch a bit of glue in to hold it in place. And that, by laying it flat on the work surface, we're making sure it's flush to the front. Later on, now you can glue the frame to the front of the wall after this glue has set up. And the advantage here is for that technique I mentioned earlier. If you want to spread your frames out a little bit, you've already anchored the inner sash, and now you're putting the framing out around it. The second approach is to build up the sash and the frame as a single unit. In this case, you'd glue your sash behind your window frame, paint it, glaze it, and then that entire assembly can be placed into the front of the window opening. And it's just like you would do if you had a injection molded plastic window. You're just gluing it in with the front, and there's enough overlap here on the frame to hold it in place. So 2 approaches. Let's talk about detailing. Those freight doors are going to need some handles. Pretty simple way is to take some wire and put a little bend around, use the ends of your needle nose pliers, clamp the wire, and you can bend it. Make them long enough, make the legs long enough if you want to drill some holes so they're anchored nice. You could represent hinges by just bits of wire that could represent the barrel of a hinge. That's all the part that would be visible. Of course, there also are castings that can make strap hinges that would go on here too. We're detailing windows. Most of us like to put something in that looks more like just an empty house. So window shades are just simply cut out from printer paper. Larger scales, you might want to fashion a pull cord on that too. And the curtains, I scrape a lot of these off the internet. They're just printed off from various advertisers that are looking to sell you curtains, and so they can be glued on after the shades go on. Typically, your shades are behind the curtains as you're facing this from the inside. On my bar and grill that I shared with you before, I used cafe curtains, and so again, these are just paper cutouts, and then I glued on a piece of brass wire for the curtain rod. So here's some examples of what you might find on the internet if you just do a search for window curtains. They're all different styles, different colors. You just want to cut these out so that you're cutting away what's in between, and then you'll wind up with 2 halves, or in the case of this one here, you would just cut away the center part and glue that all on. You just need to experiment a little bit to get them to size right. As you print them out. You might consider some room details behind your windows. So here is my bar front. I did put a few figures in. I have a little trio here that's great at the front window that you can just see them seated at a table with a waitress. I have another cluster of 3 people a little farther in. And this backdrop is simply a composite of some different interior photos. Once again, I found on the internet. It doesn't have to make a lot of sense. Don't worry too much about getting it all oriented perfectly. In fact, I used a couple copies of the same identical scene and just extended this a little bit to the right because I needed that extra length. And in this case, I mounted it to cardstock, formed it into a curve. I didn't try to, again, hit the corner precisely. It's just there to represent that there's something behind that. And here's a night scene from that same bar and grill. So don't worry too much about overdoing all those interior details. A small amount of the detail will convey the idea that that you've got something, activity going on in there. Here's some more exterior details. We'll probably hit a few more that are specific to the roof once we get on to the next week's presentation. But these are some exterior details that apply to the walls. Here's a case where Randy's added some Venetian blinds to the inside of a window. He's got, rather than hinges, door glides for doors that open to each side. He's got a hoist beam above for perhaps loading a vehicle or unloading, exterior light. Here we've got a covered porch added. That's an entire assembly of itself. If you don't like the straight trim that comes with the kit, you might find some custom trim you could add. Again, some more curtains, entry steps. Along the side of my bar and grill, so several examples here. A custom sign is a obvious addition for a commercial building. Entry steps that are a bit different here because it's a corner entry. They are curved. Most scales have electric meters and other outside components that could be added. Here's an exhaust fan. Just a plastic casting. The idea of lighting particular rooms can be done with view blocks inside, so that cuts off and contains the light in just one place. And in my case, I had this concrete well around the door. So your assignment for next time is to go ahead and do the assembly of your doors and window frames, and to paint and install on the walls these sub-assemblies. And I do welcome you again to send photos. We got a couple of photos last time, but send us something that shows what you're working on and how you're progressing. I think we do have some time for questions if anybody has some on what we just presented.
Well, Gaylord, I appreciate it so very much, both what you and Randy are doing. And if anybody does have any questions that they haven't asked so far, please send them by email to either Gaylord or Randy. Here's their emails that they're putting up now, and they'll respond to you directly. So Gaylord, thank you so very much. Great job.
Randy, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, hey, I know you've been involved in the building trade, so I'm pointing this one at you. Can you tell me something about like the floors? Like how high is a floor?
How high relative to what?
Like if I'm making a 2-story building, how tall and then how far up should like where would the first floor end and the second floor start?
All right. What's the nature of the building, Jamie?
It's sort of a house.
Like a residential application?
Yeah, like a residential house.
Okay. Well, depending on the age of the house, modern houses are mostly 8 foot. That's pretty standard, from the floor to the ceiling. But as you go back, like turn of the century houses and so forth, much more common to see 10 foot and even 12 foot ceilings.
Okay. And how does that translate to like the outside of the house? So like how,
Well, once you know where your floor is, of course, on the first floor level, just add that height, and then I would say for modeling purposes, just add about a foot for the thickness of the second floor. The whole assembly.
Okay.
It'll in the real world it's often less than that, but close enough for modeling purposes.
Okay, thanks.
Good enough.
Well, I myself don't have a question, but it looks like I think I'm a little ahead of the class.
Hey, good. That's great.
Now, what would you use for modern glass? I guess it's called plate glass, and I guess the older style is float glass. What would you do to model float glass?
In my case, I think at a modeling level, you're not going to see any distinguishing characteristics between the two. The only thing that's going to ever show up is if you go way back and before float glass and things were a little wavy looking. Sometimes you see that in old, 19th century buildings and so forth. But I don't think that there's any reason to distinguish one from another. And like Gaylord said, 10,000 styrene is a real good workable surface. Something you might try for any of you guys that have fussed around with future floor polish. Some folks will use actual glass, from slide covers. I'm sure you've seen that done. The big advantage is that it's glossier, it gives a better reflection. But you might experiment with taking just a tiny little bit of the future and painting the face of your styrene window glass with that. It definitely gives it a better sheen, a better reflective characteristic. So.
Yeah, I'm actually modeling the 18th century, so that's why I was.
Okay.
But I know about the wavy glass. That's why I was
Okay,
trying
so
to figure out what that was.
you want wavy glass.
Yes.
Okay.
Can
Yeah,
I-
I have to think about that one. I don't have a good answer for that. So.
Can I interrupt real quick? Can you see this model here that I'm holding near the camera?
We do?
Yes.
Okay, this is a paper and card build that I kit bashed from a Clever Models build. I made a 4-wall building out of a triangular building. Now, the windows are done exactly the same way you're doing your windows. But one of the tricks that I use on paper and card quite often is to just take plain packing tape, clear packing tape, and put a layer of packing tape over my window, and then put the window and then glue the window in from the inside. The reflection, I don't know if you can see the reflection on this, but the reflection of the packing tape makes it look just like glass. And it's just nothing more than a printed window.
Good.
And everything here, as I say, this is all done in paper and card. And this is basically what I'm trying to show people, a different media to work with. And anybody who's built a Craftsman kit, all of the same rules apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, thanks, Paul.
Okay, I think we need to move along right now. So if you have any more questions for Gaylord or Randy, please send them an email and they'll respond to you. Thanks again, both of you. I really do appreciate it. Now I'd like to turn to Dave Silvernail for his scenery segment on rocks and weathering. So Dave, welcome, and thank you so much for doing this.
All right, now I need to get my which one is, I think it's this one. Yep. Dang it. Thing across the top's hiding, so I can't really start the. There we go.
Dave,
All right, so tonight's is on rock molds. And scenery in the mountainous areas are full of rocks, from cliffs to just rock outcroppings, or even a gigantic rock-faced mountain and everything in between. On a trip I took to Maine in 2016 for a narrow gauge convention, I even found rock formations at the rivers up in Maine.
Dave, can you make your slide the full screen so maybe see it better?
That's what I was trying, and it didn't seem to want to play.
Okay.
Let me try this again.
Dave, if
There
you
we
go
go.
to the little screen, right?
There you go.
I got it.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay, for this segment, I'll show a couple of scenes and lead you to the rock molds. And then we will start with the molding process with the plaster, with a couple of the hows and whys of what we are doing. Currently, we're working on a friend's layout. This right here is one side of a module that I built. This is a Colorado scene. And I probably have 5 or 6 different molds on this one. This is the other side of that module. which is a California, a Feather River Canyon scene. So this is more granite and less iron content. This is one of two modules from a friend of mine in the club I'm in. He scratch built the stamp mill, and then we went ahead and put together the rock molds to, enclose this. Second part of this thing shows a small abandoned mill, which is actually covering the scenic break between the two modules. And this is his second module. He built this beautiful mine right here. And he's looking to figure out how to put it on the module. And he's looking down next to the tracks. And I finally told him, you need to elevate that thing. It's too big. So we built the mountain up, put the mine up on top, and put it all together. Same thing. These are Bragdon molds, and I use the Bragdon geodesic foam setup for all of this stuff. So rock molds, and I've got rock molds. I've got two of these 36-inch long under the bed containers with at least 40 different molds, and they're all Bragdons. Some of them are pretty huge. This one's about 32 inches across by about 14 tall. Some just a little bit smaller, but with a lot of relief on them. I've got them all for a mold for a wall. This one here, which is real light color, is one of the newer molds I've bought, so it hasn't aged hardly at all. The rest of these are probably anywhere from 6 to 10 years old, and they do start to age a little bit. Here I've got 4 different rock wall or block wall molds. And this is a real interesting one that I found that he had, and it just has a whole lot of different relief to it. This one here I bought for use on the Feather River Canyon side on my module, because this is more of what I find up in the Sierras, or straight walls with not a whole lot of relief to them. And this is the biggest mold I have. This one is 46 inches across and 13.5 inches tall. And that's for a G gauge or an F scale block wall. And Bragdon Enterprises has this material called Magic Bullet, and it's basically feels like Vaseline once it's dry. I use it on the molds when I first buy them. It's kind of a treatment for the latex rubber. And when I'm doing the molding with the Bragdon stuff, I only have to use it about every 4th or 5th time. If I feel the mold and it feels slick, like it has feels kind of like Vaseline, I don't have to reshoot it. I can just mold off of it. Here I'm spraying it on one of the molds. I'm also using it to kind of help restore a mold. So what we're doing, a friend of mine is building an ON30 layout in a 20 by 36 basement, which is kind of strange for California, but there are some. So for the Moose County Railroad, what we did, we got the molds, plastic mixing bowls, plastic mixing spoons, plaster. It's old and we don't know what kind, but got a ladle for the scoop and a spray bottle full of wet water, plus water to wash out in a bucket. Other items are assorted blocks to prop up the molds, distilled white vinegar to slow the plastic curing time, and newspaper to use as a filler in the plastic. So this was yesterday. We started with 3 molds. We set this one up in a box, and there's a reason for doing this. If you take a mold and you lay it flat and you fill it full of plaster, the center of the mold generally has more latex material in it, and you will get kind of a convex look to it, which rocks never work like that. Rocks always protrude out. So here's the second one. We've got blocks in and around that, trying to hold them up, get it ready to pour. And he's setting the third mold up there. What in the hell? Okay, so now we're mixing what we thought was plaster. Unfortunately, this was some wall mud that we're trying to use. And the basic problem with the wall mud, you put it in there and you fill up the mold as far as you want to fill it. You wait about 20, 30 minutes. It's still wet. It's not setting up. So after we washed it out and figured out it was wall mud, we went and washed the mold out, threw it all away and started again. So this time we found the real plaster, although it's an old can of plaster and we don't know what type. And so we're doing just a couple of test molds. And he's using the newspaper crumpled up to put on the back of it. He was going to put some more plaster over the top of it, but unfortunately I demolded it for him before he got to that. But this is one of the ways he uses something to help from having to use so much plaster. So we finally got this up here, and when you put plaster in, what happens, plaster when you mix it with water, it starts to cure, and there's a chemical reaction and gives off a little bit of heat. So that's when you know it's working. We filled a couple of small spots on this big mold. We're still just kind of checking this plaster out, see if it's going to work for us. You know, we got to a certain point, he fills it in, and then he takes the hammer and he taps on it, try to raise any bubbles. Also, the other thing I forgot to say is, before we even put plaster into the mold, we spray the whole mold with wet water. And the idea being is the plaster, if there's a little bit of water on the mold, will get down into all the little crevices, nooks, and crannies. If you don't do that, you'll end up with air pockets. So here we pulled the first mold out, and it worked out pretty well. Here, Dick is taking the plaster out of the mold. And we got a pretty good chunk off of that one. So here's one of the molds one of the castings set up, right? And here's one of the other ones. Got great relief off of it. Now, the reason we're doing this, because I know I've always heard people say, oh, you fill it full of plaster, you turn and you put it up on the wall of the that you want it on. The biggest problem with that is you turn the mold over, you can't tell which way the grain or the rock is oriented. So what we're doing for this railroad, we're going to make up a whole bunch of different castings. And then we'll just take them and we'll try to piece them in kind of like a mosaic up on the mountainside. And if we have to, we'll cut some, chip some, so we get a pretty tight fit. Then once you got it pretty well fit together. Any gaps you have, we'll spray a little water in the gaps and mix up some regular wet plaster and dab it in there, blend it together. The last part, when you're done, we've got this, it's like a 10-gallon waste bucket. And we got at least 5-6 gallons worth of water in it. So we wash the mold out. Of course, we wash out the buckets and everything else. When you're molding and you're doing different pours, you don't have to wash the bucket or wash the bowl every time. As long as you can do another pour within, say, 10 minutes, just keep it going. When you finally get done, you wash all the stuff out and it's ready for next time. That bucket of water does not need to be changed. It'll sit there all week. Any plaster will end up settling on the bottom. It'll be good for 3 or 4 different casting sessions. So that's it for today.
Well, Dave, I appreciate it so very much. I look forward to next time.
Here it is. Had to find the stop share.
Thank you so very much. That's great. Well, finally, we're going to get to Andy Kinney, our featured modeler, and his great railroad. As you know, Andy specializes in operation, and I think this is really going to be interesting for you to hear him discuss the operational part of his model railroad. Andy, thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, you're welcome, Jim, but this isn't on operations. That's coming up in the fall.
Well, whatever.
It was all designed and built for operations though. So that's a good part. Okay, let me go to share screen. Okay, here. There we go. Okay, what I've done over time is I built my railroad, and I learned a lot of new things. I've changed some things. I corrected some things as I went, and I tried to record them on camera, images for later use as I built the railroad. And I've taken these different things that I've learned, and I've already presented some of them to the on program, some of the shorter versions. I took those out of this one because I had over 200 slides here, and although the slides would go through pretty quick, that's still, there was no reason to go over what I'd already done, and we have it on YouTube for people to see. So we'll just start here, and basically I'm just going to take you through what I've learned and what I continue to learn as I go here. So it is the Nashville Road. I think you all know that now. It's a railroad I'm building, triple deck. And we've gotten to the point where not a whole lot of scenery, but a lot of operation. So I have a great crew, and we operate, well, before COVID, we operate regularly, twice a month. So the shot, this is very similar to the shot that Joe Fugate used for Model Railroad Hobbyist magazine cover. And layout room preparation and construction, not so heavy on construction, but it's really important, I believe. Now, this is all my thoughts and doesn't mean it's correct. I'm sure Clark has something better than me, but we'll wait and see what he says. Hope you took that the right way, Clark. A layout room, it's good to prepare it ahead of time and not after you've got your railroad going. We cover walls and backdrops, layout structure, ceiling, and lighting. This is a very early picture, and there's several things I can point out on this. This picture here, was of an old camera, and luckily I found it because I don't have too many of the framework in that. For my multi-deck, I ran 2x2. I actually put drywall up over the studs, and I ran 2x2 vertical boards and lag bolted them. You can see here, I lag bolted them into the studs behind the drywall. And I hung everything off of those. So I both screwed and glued them. The upper deck, the depth wasn't so much that I had to worry about whether I had enough support. The lower one here was 2 feet, so I wanted support, and I brought these out several inches. You'll see on the next image, this was originally on the lower deck. The passing, or I should say, the main line was the back track. The second was a passing siding, and these 2 tracks here were for the gravel pit operation. And basically that was it. Going the other way behind the camera, it was when it came off the passing siding, there was nothing, just a single main all the way. I decided I wanted to do more with this area, so it went from a passing siding with some operation in the gravel pit to a fairly major yard with several trains operating out of it daily. And you've seen pictures of that. The 3 Jeeps were leaving that, and I've got a few more pics. But one of the things I wanted to point out was this support. Let's see right here. The support on this one coming down, the support here, they were out several inches. And I decided to make this deeper. And when I did, I took all these supports, cut them out and moved them back, and then added another several inches, exactly how many, I can't remember, but I added quite a bit of board behind it to give me more depth for the yard and that. Let's see, Christmas tree lights don't work. Forget about those. I don't know how many lights I bought and scrapped. I think that's probably it for this. We'll go to the next picture here. And up here you can see the boards that the vertical boards that were for the backdrop that I cut out, and I repositioned them way back here. So that made quite a bit of difference in the depth here. That's basically what I wanted to show you there. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Okay, dealing with the problem. When you have multi-decks, one thing you have to worry about is structures and scenes on a lower deck impinging on a upper deck or a deck above it. And this was not going to work out. I wanted this station here. It was given to me by a group of modelers in Indianapolis. And this station actually sat in the Indianapolis station down in the front in this area on their Model Railroad Club. And when they were kicked out by a hotel that took it over, they had nowhere to put this. The gentleman that built it had passed away, and they brought it up from Indianapolis for me. They told me they had a perfect station for me. So I definitely wanted to keep the station. And what I did was I got rid of the upper deck here, and I inset the main line single track into the wall. I have a couple more shots here, but I cut into the 2x2s. They're bolted above and bolted below, and I just cut 2 or 3 inches out of them, and then set this board with the track. To make it look like the train wasn't just going off into the sky, I made these pieces of the fascia large and long, and the train would go into the tunnel, disappear, and it would come out down at this end. Now, in the long run, I'm going to have masonite backdrop covering this area. It's going to be hinged at the bottom, and it's going to have building flats on it. It's going to be the downtown area, and that'll continue all along this wall here. Another picture. Also, you'll see a little bit later, these are lift outs too, so I can get at these, get at the train if I have a problem with it. And again, going back in and then coming out on the far side. Okay, lighting and ceilings. I decided I wanted to put a ceiling up before I got started, and I didn't like the 2x4s, the paper type, pressed paper type 2x4 insulated boards. They start to sink in the middle. They lose their body, and I cut everything into 2x2s, and I framed it 2x2. My only problem with that is when I cut them in half, the fibers on the edge that I cut started being released, and that caused dust. So I had to seal all those. But I did put the ceiling all up before I got started on the railroad. And the lighting, I was very lucky. The local high school in DeWitt was being rebuilt, modernized. And a friend of mine that was a contractor working there told me to run over there and get some lights. They were throwing them in the dumpster, and it was a very big school. And I went over with my pickup, 8-foot bed, and I loaded that bed up, stacking them vertically in there. And I probably got 40 or so of these lights. They came with 4 bulbs, 2 ballasts, very old, but in very good condition. And so I was able to do my whole railroad room with these lights and still have quite a few left over. We have updated these lights, gone to T8 bulbs and with electronic ballasts. We're getting rid of the old ballasts with the PCBs and stuff. I've got 5 lights left to update, rebuild, and we're going to have that done within the next 2 weeks, and they'll all be done. So that's an important thing. You have to make a decision on if you want to do anything with the ceiling, but I would really recommend getting good lighting and getting your lighting set up. I've used, or I should say, I bought some LED lighting, but not used it yet. Yeah, I think if I was just starting today, I'd probably be going with LED, but you know, with all these lights and the quality I'm getting out of them, I'm happy with these. Okay, so layout lighting. All right, it's important for a multi-deck layout to have good lighting for the lower decks. Now you can see down here, this is staging, and I put some lighting at both ends, but not in the middle. This is the lower deck, and it's well lit. I've got some areas well lit, and I've got other areas that have to be lit yet. And what I went with on this is, you can see picture here. These are about 2 feet. They're 23 inch, so just shy of 2 feet, and they come with jumpers. You can link up to 5 of them, and it's worked out really well. Bill Neal used some of these on his layout, and he gave me the idea for it. And I was buying them at Myers right along, and then they decided that they were going to LEDs. So this is what you'll get now. They're a little bit more expensive. They're somewhere in the area of, well, the other one were around $10 a piece. These might be up around 14, 15. I'm not sure. I bought a couple and I haven't used them yet. So, but the underdeck lighting, I mounted them on 1x2 boards and on the backside, and then just the whole length of the run for each deck will have these types of lights. I also put an order in at 1000bulbs.com or 1000lights.com, whatever they are, and ordered a bunch of extra bulbs because these things were burning out a fair amount, I thought, for the amount of time I was using them. So the bulbs were really cheap, and I bought a box of them to have for replacement. So just a couple more shots here. Okay, layout construction techniques. Laying the Atlas Code 83, I did show this a little bit not too long ago, I believe. Cork road bed, installation ideas, and super elevation. So I use either a 4 or a 5 foot straight edge when I'm laying tracks, the straight track to keep it nice and straight. I use calipers to keep the distance between the tracks, and a putty knife, and Alex Plus DAP or DAP Alex Plus caulk. You put that down paper thin and just lay the track on it, put a little weight on it and let it dry. Same with the cork. All the cork was installed with this caulk and then a track over it. And it's worked out very well for me. It's held very, very well. Okay, this is just showing you I'd use a straight edge along the line to make sure that the track is straight. I would put this against the rail head on the outside, and I just butt the track up to it. And also it shows you the caliber used to keep the distance equal all along the way, and you can make adjustments. The caulk doesn't set up real quickly, so you have time to work with it. And here it looks after I've laid the caulk and then laid the track into it. It looks curved here a little bit, but that's just the camera. Used the straight edge to put it in. Okay, now for the areas between the track, separate pieces of track where you got to use a rail joiner, I started taking the extra ties that you would get with this flex track, and I would put them under the end, and then you can put heat on it. Whoops, I'm sorry. You can put heat on the top of the rail with the soldering iron, and just let it heat up to the point that it goes down into the tie, just enough so you don't have a hump here because of the extra metal from the rail joiner. If you get it too hot though, you're going to have these ends curl up, so you got to be kind of careful with it. And this showing how I would transition from cork down to plywood. All my yards are right on plywood. I only use cork for the main line. And I think I told you in the past, I had a really good deal. I went to Home Depot, and they had a 125-foot roll of cork, which was originally $500, and they were selling it for 25% of what was the original price. So I bought the whole thing, and I just set up a rig to unroll it and cut it in pieces, and was able to do the whole layout with that. That saved me quite a bit of money. Super elevation. This is weed whacker cord, or whatever you want to call it, the string. You can get different thicknesses. I think this is around 60 or so, if I'm not mistaken. And I would super glue it down, and then I would use the caulk to lay the track into it. And at both ends, I would just sand it down. Actually, you could use a belt sander. If you don't get it too hot, it will come unglued if you get it too hot. But just a belt sander will bring it down nicely over a foot. Just taper it down to nothing to go into the super elevated curve. And here's a picture of super elevation. Another couple. You can see the difference. These are just industrial tracks up here. So you can see the cant here of the super elevation. Okay, scratch built crossings. I started putting in Atlas plastic crossings, and they just weren't working for me. I get too many dead spots, and nothing worse than having to deal with engines quitting on you as you're trying to switch. So I took this, this was from Fast Tracks. I made a copy of it, and you can see it's the right size. So I ripped this out, and then I started working with this. Actually, let's see if no, that's right. I didn't want to spend too many slides showing you each piece going in. So that's how it looked like. What I did was I glued this down, these ties down on the plastic, and then I went ahead and built it up right on the ties, solder it. One thing I also learned when you're using a Dremel, it's really easy to cut into a rail you don't want to cut into. There's a couple of them there. So you got to be very careful with the Dremel that you don't cut more than you really want to. But that's the crossing I put in at the paper mill. These switches were all Fast Tracks rebuilts. I should say Atlas rebuilts to Fast Track specs. So the center portions of these switches are all like Fast Track, and they work so much better. Okay, passenger throat. This was originally a plastic, or standard Atlas crossing, same thing, having problems with engines dying on the switch. So first of all, I laid the plate, just plastic plate, and then I scribed centerline for both tracks. Then I started gluing in. You can see I have them up here, and I take these and lay them into the glue and let them dry. And then after they're dried, then I just start soldering. Well, here it shows you all of them in there. And then I started soldering all the rail in, and then I would cut in piece as I needed to, all the parts of the crossing. And this was it when it was done. And then what I did was, let's see if it doesn't show, you can see the cuts. There's a cut there and a cut there. But what I was able to do was power this up with the frog juicers, and there's no dead rail in here. And the engines run over it really nicely now. But the cars run through it really nice, and I'm quite happy the way it worked out. And these switches up here were number 12s. No, I'm sorry, number 8s. And I also rebuilt these to Fast Track standards. So got rid of the hinge switches, and they're just they just flex the rails solid. So you can see it again here. Okay, scenery thoughts. Track ballasting, track weathering, strata rock formation, stone walls, ground covering. And the ground covering is only real dirt and ground goop. I didn't get into the other one that I used, the quilt batting, because I did that already. And a little bit on trees, just an idea. Okay, track ballasting. So variations of dirt and cinders in yards and industries. And I use Smith & Son Penn, Ohio gray ballast for the main line. And I really liked Smith & Son ballast. Harley Smith passed away a couple of years ago. I think his son's still doing it, but I don't know how easy it is to get ballast from them. Harley used to drive into Pennsylvania to some of the quarries and that. And around the area where the trucks were driving and that, there would be a lot of this stuff really ground up. He would fill a big barrel up in the back of his pickup, bring it home, and he would sift all through those. For my track ballasting, I used this Shoreline. It's a touch-up pad, if you're not familiar with it. And it worked just great. You put the ballast down, whether it's dirt or regular ballast, and you can use that to kind of spread it. And then to get all the ballast off the ties and around the rail, the spike heads and that, you just barely touch the ties with this thing, and you just go back and forth, very short amount, half inch or so back and forth, and just kind of go along the rail that way. And when you get done, this is what it looks like. It'll get all that ballast off the rail. So it does a nice job, and it covers it fast. So this is what I do everything with. And again, I learned this from gentleman in Indianapolis area, Ted. He's a school teacher. I can't think of his last name. Beautiful railroad, Union Pacific. And I asked him about that, and he gave me the information on this, so I ran with it. So initial track weathering, initial spray of Rust-Oleum camouflage earth brown. And that is one of the camouflage colors. It's basically the very same as roof brown from Floquil. Both companies were owned by RPM. And although Floquil's gone, I think they're still using some of the same colors. So, and then I use a variety of tans and gray acrylic colors to age some of the ties. And I give everything a wash of alcohol and India ink just to tone it down. So also, I've also used very watered down weathering wash, and basically I use acrylic paints, take some black, brown, and gray, put it in a jar of water, and just put as much paint in as you want. It's still going to be very watered down. Shake it up good, and then I use say a 1-inch brush, and I just cover everything. I'd cover the ballast, I covered the ties, and before you know it, it's gone, and it doesn't change a whole lot, but it subdues the area a little bit, and I think that I like the look of it after you've done that. So these ties here have all been hand painted, and I gave it a wash of that alcohol India ink. Now, I've not weathered any of these or scenic any of this area because these switches are going to be rebuilt to the Atlas or the fast track standard. They're all Atlas switches. So until I do that, I'm not going to touch this area as far as ballasting and scenicing goes. So that's, and I've got several places like this on a railroad, so it'll be a while. Here's some of the ties. I just go along, I take 2 or 3 different colors, and I would just paint some ties, and then I'd go along, paint a couple more, and so on across the area. It goes pretty fast. And I find it kind of relaxing. I enjoy it. And of course, you want to do that before the scenery's down, the ballasting is down. You can see the black stuff is cinder, kind of a cinder mix I use. And I mix it with dirt, finely filtered dirt. Okay, real dirt base. Luckily for me, I've got a lot of clay. Well, it's good and bad. I've got a lot of clay on my land. So when I was out working an area with the tractor, it really ground up this clay to a fine powder. And although I've not used too much of it yet, I've given, Bob Butler took some back. Bob's here with us. He took it back to Sandusky with him, and it makes it really easy to work with and to filter. So I was using these filters you see at the bottom, but here's a mixture that I take with the dirt and the black cinder that I have. It's a very fine black. But this filter, the sieve, I should say, I bought 4 of them. I actually have to pick up one more, but I will have for sizes up above, you can see 20, 40, 50, 60, and 110. So they're a nice size. They're probably 6 inches, 5 to 6 inches across, and 3 or so inches tall, maybe 4. So you can put a fair amount of material in there and filter it out. So that really helps getting the big stuff out, so it doesn't mess the scene up. The large chunks in that are not going to be there. So you can see some of the dirt down below. That's some of the filtered stuff. and then some of it's mixed into the cinder. I've noticed on some of my pictures, the little white spots show up for some reason a lot more, salt and peppery, but in person, when you look, you don't get that. Something in the camera is causing that to happen, but it's actually a lot nicer and more subdued looking in person.
Hey, Andy, two quick questions.
Sure.
Jim Murphy in the Zoom chat wants to know, where do you get the seeds, the sieves?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have that. Well, that is at Amazon. And let's see, I don't know if you want me to take the time to look at it. The Amazon has a lot of stuff in there, and I got that from Joe Fugit. Joe was the guy that put me onto that.
That's okay. You can just put that in the chat later on.
Okay, that sounds good.
Don't
Yeah.
take time now.
Yeah. I was going to do that and I got busy and I forgot to add that to it. But you can buy a whole set of them for somewhere around $45 with free shipping, which isn't too bad.
The second question I have is from me. You're talking about Atlas Track that's converted to Fast Track standard. Exactly what does that mean?
Okay. Are you familiar with Fast Tracks?
Yes.
Okay. What I did was I take the switch that I'm looking at right here. And if this was an Atlas switch, what I did was I pulled it apart. I got rid of the closure rails and the point rails and the frog, this frog back here and these two rails here. So I ripped those out. And I had to use a certain amount of the copper clad ties, the ones I showed you when I was doing the crossings. And the copper clad ties are what holds it together. I'd solder the rail pieces in place. And I'd make the frog on, I've got a number 6 jig for making number 6 fast track switches. But you can also make it without that. It just makes it a lot faster and a lot easier if you've got that jig. And I would just drop that new section into the the center portion of an Atlas switch. You can't do it like on the layout. You got to pull it apart. But it takes a little over an hour to do it. But you figure you can rebuild an Atlas switch to fast track quality for about $2.50 a switch. So that's not bad. That's pretty cheap. Does that answer?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. All right.
May I interrupt for a second? That works really good for Shinohara switches too. I had a lot of trouble with Shinoharas and rebuilt mine a very similar way.
Oh, good. I didn't know that. That's good to know. Thank you. So this here's a mixture of the cinders and the dirt, and you can see this other dirt's pretty fine. I filtered that. Now this was before I got those nice sieves from Amazon. I filtered in a little tea strainer, but it worked out pretty good. And here again, all that white shows up there. It's just not there when you're looking at the tracks. It blends very nicely, but this is a combination of dirt and that black cinder. It's a lot darker in person. And then I've got some dirt in between with a little grass, a little greenery, or I should say weeds in that. Okay, sedimentary rock. What I use is a friend of mine, again, found this and showed it to us at our division meeting, and I ran with it. I thought it was really great. Quickcrete's the company that makes it. It's expansion joint strips. Now they're 5 foot long, 1/2 inch thick, and 4 inches wide. And this is board here. So it's impregnated with some kind of an oil preservative. It's a bunch of paper fiber or wood fiber, I should say. And basically what you're doing is you're snapping it. You're breaking it. You don't want to put any cuts in there or anything, because then it doesn't look natural. And I was doing it in the door jamb, and it was really working well till I realized I was popping the screws right out of the door jamb. So I had to be careful. But if you have a vise, a good sized vise, you can use that also. And what you do, this is a finished side. So when you snap it in half, you go back and forth a little bit, back and forth until they break. And then you're going to have two pieces with that finished, with that ragged face that you want. Then come up here and you just cut this. I was actually using my saber saw and just cutting it, and then doing the snap again, then cutting it. So you end up having a bunch of pieces like this. Back side's flat from the cut, and the front side is what you what's going to be the sedimentary rock. You can see some back here. So this is what it looks like as you're cutting it, snapping it, cutting it, snapping it. And then you stack it up. I think this looks slightly blurry. You can see there's a lot of fiber in here, but the fiber we take care of, you'll see. So here again, now this has all been glued together, and I just use, a carpenter's glue, glue it together, let it set. And then I believe what I did was curved. Yeah, I cut it, the curvature that I wanted for the scene. Then I take Mod Podge. You want the flat finish Mod Podge, and you just coat it. This is two separate pieces, that one up there and then this down here. And you just coat it really heavy with the Mod Podge and let it dry. And when it dries, it becomes very hard. And then what I do is I take a wire brush, a good sturdy wire brush, not one of those old cheap ones, and I just brush the heck out of it. And you can't hurt this stuff, but it'll take all the fiber out. And then you go ahead and paint it the way you want it. You'll see a little bit later. I actually had it like this and showed it to someone. They said, well, you should have layers of different colors because of the different types of rocks and the sedimentary rock, or materials, I should say. So I went ahead and colored it. Now, one thing I can point out to you, and it doesn't show up very much when you're just looking at the scene, especially if you're not looking straight on, you can see where these are. And you can, if you want to take the time, fill them in a little bit, but in person, they never really show up. You're not staring at them. Okay, here's another piece. This is the piece over the tunnel that lifts out, and I wanted to put a little in there. So the same thing, I made it, there's your wire brush. So I made it right in the piece overhead, and then wire brushed it, and then painted it. And again, paint it whatever color you want. And here I modified it a little bit, and then I used some ground goop to cover it. Okay, you can see these little holes here. Those drove me crazy at first. I didn't want those, but when I decided I was going to do something about it, I wasn't so happy with the way it ended up. So I think this looks okay. And what I used was this spackling, lightweight spackling, and I used a toothbrush, and I filled in all the slots or the holes in that with the toothbrush. And then when it dried, it just didn't look that good. And see if I got one. Nope, I don't have one more picture. So that might have been it right there. No, the holes are still there. Anyways, I decided it wasn't worth it. But if you don't like the holes, you can fill them in and then just go ahead and paint it the way you want it painted. So processing material, break off the end piece, pieces, cut, break back and forth. And then stack them for the effect you want. Use liquid nails to glue them together, or yellow, the carpenter's glue. You coat the face with Mod Podge. When dry, you wire brush the fibers off. And optional, if you want more of the gaps filled, use a toothbrush to work lightweight spackle in the crevices. Paint horizontal bands as desired. And that's what it looks like. So here's one more that I did. Again, I'll just take you through it. This is at the other side. The colors here I don't quite like. I was playing around with them. I'm going to change some of the colors on this. Okay, now the second thing that I came up with was cement board. It's that sub floorboard they use for when they're putting in bathroom tile and all that kind of stuff. And this snaps easy. You can score it, say score maybe 4 inches or so, snap it. And then you start snapping it the other way and you come up with a bunch of these. And actually that handle right there would hold them and snap them. It shows you right here. So it snaps easily. And then it's just a different type of material. It's thinner, so you can get a little bit. If you use the other with this and some of the ceiling tile, so you get all kinds of different, it looks like a different type of material also. It's not all the same. So this stuff back here, layers of this and this with this, and just kind of mix them up. That can look very real. You can also get this wet and arc it. Because if you look at images of sedimentary rock, you'll see some really curved stuff that over the years, as that stuff built up in that, it just became curved as it settled. Okay, stone walls. These are a bunch of Woodland Scenics castings. And basically, I just glued a whole bunch of them in there, and then I put the riprap at the bottom. Then I realized this isn't even, you wouldn't see any of this around Nashville. So this is all going to come out one day. But for now, it's going to remain while I work in the other areas. This was something I tried. It's just styrofoam block, and you can make yourself a stone wall using that. You can also push down, with a screwdriver or some kind of tool or marker, and get more relief on some of these things so they're not as flat. It was just something I just tried. A friend of mine, Terry Davis, had us do that for a class. It worked pretty good. This is a Bragdon mold. And this one here, I've used quite a bit, and it's getting quite old now. This right here was Bragdon. And what I did was I laid it in a cradle, the curved cradle. So I could do an inside curve and an outside curve as needed to make the wall. And then since they are 4 inches, I think, something like that, 4 or 5 inches, I used a saw to cut it down to where I wanted it after I cast it. And I was able to get 2 or 3 pieces of this curved wall out of that one piece. So you can see it goes on. The area you saw, first of all, was to the left, and it goes all the way down around to the right, and got a little short piece of the wall here. So it worked out well. I was happy with the Bragdon. And there's more wall I had here. I kind of overdid it here, but it was handy for what I needed. I think it'll work out pretty good. This will be a river. There's a dam here, and these are mills. Just my luck, I had a faucet up above in the ceiling, the casting. It's a brass casting, and it actually split. So I came down here and it was all wet, and it got into the board here that I had all set, and the paint, the glue here, so kind of messed things up. Another long wall. So you see that Bragdon's worked out pretty well for me. Okay, here's another Bragdon abutment mold, 134, and I used that for a single track bridge and a double track bridge. And then I took 4 of those molds and used just a portion of it to create these. Okay, ground goop. Most of you probably know what ground goop is or heard of it. These are the tools I use when I make it. And I would probably still use it, but I'm going to use a lot more of the fabric quilting batting that I found. That worked really well, so I was quite happy with that, but I can see a need for both of them. I use Zonalite. I got a big bag for about 20 bucks. And I was told, be careful, chemicals or, cancer and all that. And I couldn't find anything from any company. They don't make this now, I understand. Grace doesn't. Grace might even be sold now. But I couldn't find anything anywhere that said that there was anything special that you had to be worried about with this. So Zonalite, and there's one other, and I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's a little larger. This is a very fine. And that's what it looks like there. So you see how fine it is. Use that, use cellular clay. Get that at Michael's, Hobby Lobby and that. And the paint, this was just some of the paint I had, and I wanted for this color right here. So I bought a gallon of the paint, and then I mixed it all up. And I've got something here telling you exactly what you mix. Cellular clay, paper mache, vermiculite, that's it, or Zonalite. Acrylic paint, or just a gallon of cheap latex paint, and white glue. And it tells you, it shows you what to mix quantities of. I've also found that it helps if you need to put a little water in it, and that makes it a little easier to spread. And this is what it looks like here, just as a base. And then you'd put your greenery and everything else over it. Okay, the only thing on trees is my wife started planting hydrangea bushes for me. And I've got bags of these things now, and they make nice trees, but you also have to do a little work. This is what they look like when you pull them off in the fall before the rain and snow hits them. So I still need a little cleaning there. And that's some I just set up on a foam board and just left them up there. But you can see the shapes are nice. You could take them, you could spray them, you could spray a glue and drop more material on them of the stuff we use for foliage. It's something to consider. And there's quite a few of these bushes around if you look for them. There's different types too. There's one that's very large, and it would make really nice, massive trees. Maybe more on size of O scale or S scale trees, but it's something to consider. So equipment paint schemes. I've been working with over time trying to come up with good paint schemes for my equipment. And a friend of mine painted these for me. I had the scheme I wanted, and basically it was, since Nashville Road is partly owned by the Milwaukee Road, I decided to go with a paint scheme basically off the Milwaukee Road, but changed it to yellow. And then I add some striping at the end with its own logo. This is the scheme I would like to use on the F units, the first generation. I'm going to also have a 1969 era railroad, so it'll probably be a dip with more just a single paint scheme and name and logo. But you know, everything right now is 1956. Cabooses, these are the two cabooses, the two styles of cabooses that I'm using for 1956 with scribed. Again, the same friend of mine painted these for me. And these are the, you can see the name is in full on this one and just the logo. Then a boxcar, I came up with this for the boxcars main line to the south, since it runs from Chicago and Detroit down to Indianapolis, then all the way down to New Orleans. So it seemed to me like a good statement, main line to the south. I didn't like that on an angle though, because if you look at the box on the other side, that's also an angle. It looks like it's dipping at both ends. So I changed it to just make it horizontal. I think I like this better. And then I'm doing a fleet of bulkhead flats for pulpwood operation. And this is the only pulpwood car or the only pulpwood load that I've created. I've been too busy doing other stuff, but I was happy the way this came out. Just sticks I found from around the place here. Okay, the last thing, let's see. Yeah, if you don't like it, don't be afraid to change it. We'll go back to that first picture. This originally, as I say, was a mainline passing siding, and I happened to have this operation right here, just the two tracks, one to push cars in and one to bring the outbound loads out. And apart from that, there was nothing else here. So after I rebuilt this area, like I showed you, then I was able to take the main line and run to the back. And you see how much room I had to add the yard. You know, go back one time and see the difference. That main line right there and the passing siding were both on cork. And that is this track right here. And let's see, this track right here, these two tracks, passing siding and main line. And everything else was built around that, those two. So the main line here, at one time, it came straight and went right into that track that's raised right there. So I didn't really have to rip anything up. I just had to add a lot. Didn't even take the tracks out and remove the cork, just left it. And then the other way, at one time, this one main line coming up here, and this is where we had the passing siding. So you can see how much I was able to add here, a whole another operation, and then I have industries down there. So that's it. Nothing else to show you right now, but I am working on, I will be working through the summer on operations on the Nashville Road and get into how we operate, the car card system that we came up with, and a lot of other stuff that might interest people in operations. So that's it, Jim.
Well, Andy, I can't thank you enough for doing this. It's just fascinating, the stuff that you've been able to accumulate and to accomplish on your model railroad. It's really a beautiful job.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
And I look forward to the operation one later this year. I know we've got it scheduled, and I'm really looking forward to the actual operating session that you're going to be doing, because I think that's really for a lot of us, that, you know, that is your cup of tea, and that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, that's, hopefully I can do some video clips. Have we done video clips? They work very well.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah.
Okay, good. I will work on that.
Fantastic. Listen, you mentioned, and I'm not talking to you now. So
Okay.
Ed, if you can get me back here, let me try to close this thing out for today. You heard Andy talk about fast tracks. He showed you one of the crossings that he did. He showed you what he does to convert other switches that he's had problems with into the fast track standards. I personally have never used fast tracks. Don't know anything about it. I'll bet there's an awful lot of people out there like me that hear people like Andy talk about it, rave about it, and they have no idea what he's talking about. I recently talked to another modeler who was thinking about doing an electronics presentation on the show. And I said, you know, if you're going to do an electronic presentation, I said, I get frustrated because I know nothing about electronics. And for people to show me a schematic and expect me to start using the knowledge that I'm accumulating from that schematic in my model railroading, it's probably never going to happen. I said, how about we get all of the bits and pieces necessary to create an electronic something? Railroad crossing blinking lights, railroad crossing gates that lower and raise, something. And we get every electronic part necessary to accomplish that, and the wire necessary to hook them all together to accomplish that. And instead of showing us schematics and everything, why don't we do a build along with me? And I'll do everything I can to try to find a manufacturer who will package all of those bits and pieces electronically, including the wire, so that whoever wants to build along with you would be able to do it. And I think we're going to do that. When we're going to do it, it'll probably be this fall. But I think we're going to try to do one of those. To me, that I think that's certainly going to help a lot of people try to really understand what the schematic is trying to say, that maybe I'm just not smart enough to figure it out. But if we can follow along and build along using the actual same bits and pieces that the modeler building it is using, then maybe it'll be something that we'll start incorporating in our modeling. And I do think that is the future of model railroad. Well, I feel the same way about fast tracks and converting existing switches that you can buy for pennies on a dollar at swap meets and so forth.
Jim, it's
Yes,
Clark. I'm sorry to interrupt, but as you know, you may or may not know, I work for Fast Tracks.
Okay.
And I've talked to Tim about it, and I will do a build of a Fast Tracks turnout. That's easy. I can do that with my eyes closed.
Oh, that would be great, Clark, if you wouldn't mind doing it. But what I was going to try to finish saying was, Clark, can we also take a switch? I don't care who the manufacturer is. I don't care how old it is. Can we take a switch like Andy was talking about, like many of us have already on our railroad and aren't happy with, and convert them to fast track standards? Can we include that in the build along that you're talking about doing?
You can, but unless you have a lot of turnouts, it's not worth it. You just build a Fast Tracks turnout, take the old one out and drop it in.
Okay.
But I can show you how to do what Andy has done, and maybe I can even work with Andy and we'll do something together, since he's done quite a few of them. I mean, I've done it myself, but I rarely do that. I would rather remove the whole turnout and put a true Fast Tracks in, personally, because that's the only turnouts I use. So I never put an Atlas in myself. But I can certainly, I'll talk with Andy. I'll send him an email and maybe
Oh,
we
that would be great. That
we
would be
can do
great.
something together. We can do a build of a standard turnout, and maybe one of Tim's brand new crossovers that are unbelievable. And then Andy and I can maybe work together and do a rebuild on a turnout.
That would be fantastic. I tell you, it really would. I've got a date of August the 14th that I have open right now. I'm going to tentatively say that's the date we'll use. If it doesn't work, I'll move it. But at least from my standpoint, that's the date I'm going to try to shoot for, and we'll see how it goes.
Is that a Wednesday? Is it a Wednesday or Saturday?
Hold on, I got to find the calendar and find out.
Actually, we should do this offline and we'll
It's Saturday.
Oh, sure. All right.
Okay, so August the 14th, I'll tentatively say that's when Clark and Andy for Fast Tracks. Okay,
I don't want to speak for Andy. I'll have to talk to him.
No. I understand. Let me ask you this: can you also talk to the manufacturer and tell him I need a discount, a super discount on?
No, you will not get one out of Tim.
Why not?
Because the margins are pretty close, and and I don't think many modelers here, because to buy a basic set to build one is over $300.
To build a Fast Tracks model?
Yes. But once you have the tools, you can build hundreds of them for $2 and $3 a piece.
So this is something that unless you have a gigantic railroad like
anything after 10, if you're building one of, forget it. If you're going to build anything after 10, you have paid for the tools.
Okay.
This is a tool. This isn't a little model kit. This is a real tool that's certified by the NMRA, matter of fact, as a tool. And it's not a $29.95 deal. No.
That's great. Then what I'll call this is not a build along. I'll call it a watch me build.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you for telling me that. I had no idea because I've never used it, never even thought about it before. All right. Well, that takes me to my comments about our next show, which will be the 5th of May. Tammy Hurst is going to be our a featured modeler. She is the director of the Toy Train Museum of the TCA. And we're going to have special segments by Martin Breckfield, MMR, on scratch building. John Frankfurter is going to do one of his Watch Me builds on scratch building an S-scale bridge. Paul Johnson is going to do another one of his quick tips. And I think it's going to be a fantastic show. I'm really encouraged by Tammy and her participation. And I truly hope that we can start drawing some more what I consider to be template modelers who want to run their Lionel trains and American Flyer trains in a more scale-like situation as far as the scenery and structures and that kind of thing are concerned. And if they want to do that, then they're most welcome. And I encourage them to join us. I think they'll learn a lot, and I think we'll benefit from their participation. So thank you all for coming tonight. I really do appreciate it. I hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. And best of modeling to you.